Good morning, everyone, and happy St. Patrick's Day for those of you out there. Hopefully you're all wearing green. We appreciate you taking the time today to join our session. Today's going to be an exciting session. And I think just to get started, we're waiting for a couple people to get in here. I'm going to ask that you see where the comments are and just put in there where you're calling in from, or where you're viewing from, rather. Calling in is probably none of us probably today are calling in. We're probably all on the web through YouTube. So if you can just put in there where you're from, it's also where you're going to be able to ask questions throughout the session. So we certainly encourage you to ask questions. We have a large number of questions that were entered ahead of time, and we're going to try to answer those all today. As we get into this further, we're going to go through as many of those as we can, both in the chat and then also save some time at the end to answer those live. So here they come. I see a lot of comments coming in. Fantastic. We've got people coming in from Egypt, all over the States. Unbelievable. Fantastic. We have a very large number of registrations here today. So it looks like we've got a portion of those watching live. Some will probably be watching the recording. And we're excited to have you guys today. So we'll give it another minute, and then we will jump into the PowerPoint. Fantastic. Wow, this is excellent. Well, I'm actually in from Baltimore, Maryland, close to DC here. For a lot of you guys is where I'm presenting from today. Obviously, we're still, most of us at OpenLMS are remote. We have some really exciting stuff to share with you today. To jump into it, we have an agenda of getting into a little bit of an overview about OpenLMS and eThink in particular. I know there's a lot of eThink clients here, but also a lot of people outside of OpenLMS. I'm going to explain a little bit about the story, all the exciting things that have been happening. We're going to talk about the climate and, of course, COVID. You really can't do a presentation about online learning without talking a little bit about COVID, what's going on in terms of the industry and how that's affecting the universities and colleges that we work with all over the world. We're going to get into accessibility, speaking a little bit about the topic and also the tool that Ally is able to do a lot of phenomenal things for our client base. And last but certainly not least, we have a very important guest speaker, Dr. Restora from Carolina Coastal University, who is an active user of Ally and is probably the one you want to hear from the most. She's an expert on accessibility, and I think you'll very much enjoy what she has to say as she shares her experiences here with using the product and making her use of Moodle very accessible. Jumping right into the story about eThink. So I am the former CEO of eThink, and eThink was the largest Moodle partner in the world. We were growing very rapidly. We were certainly the largest Moodle partner in the world. Did about 13 years. Prior to this, I was at Ellucian, so a lot of you probably know Ellucian very well, working with student information systems. Myself and the other founder, Cheryl Patsavos, who's now our head of customer success. I'm now the head of global sales for OpenLMS. We were the two founders of the business. We grew it organically over about a 13-year period, and really focused mostly on high-touch, high-quality service and support. We found the market was very interesting when it came to Moodle. Moodle's obviously a very interesting and powerful solution. It's freely available, but the market itself was very fragmented. There were a lot of smaller companies providing services, and not always the best quality of service and support. What we found really fascinating and kind of interesting about the open source community was that we could come in, we could provide excellent support, and we were incentivized to do so, because if we didn't do that, a client could take their database, leave, and go somewhere else, keeping the code base. So that was really the tenet of our story, this idea that we would base the business on the quality of the support and service. If we go into the next slide here, talking a little bit about the presenters today, I'm super excited to have Jake Webb, who is a senior solutions engineer from Blackboard. He will be talking a little bit about Ally. He does a lot of work with us on Ally itself and presents solutions for clients that solve the many of the accessibility issues that they've had when expanding this over the last 12 months, especially their use of the learning management system. Also, we have Dr. Restora, who is from Coastal Carolina, and she's going to be getting into the weeds a little bit more about her use of the system, which I think is probably going to be the meat of what most of you are here to see today. And I, as I said, am head of sales now at OpenLMS. OpenLMS, let me tell you a little bit about the story of OpenLMS. So it's been a pretty interesting ride. I know many of you have followed the story over the past couple of months. It's been an interesting one. OpenLMS was formerly Moodle Rooms, was formerly with Blackboard, and Blackboard itself has decided to take that business out, and it's been moved over to LTG. And we still work very closely with Blackboard for a lot of their other products like Ally, SafeAssign. We are a company that looks to try to present one single solution for our clients. And we do that using a number of different solutions, some of which are certainly still with Blackboard. So we work closely with Jake and a number of the folks over there. But OpenLMS was the former Moodle Rooms business that was turned into OpenLMS. It was a little bit larger than us. eCreators was the Australian Moodle partner, and that was the main partner. That was a global partner of the year. eThink was a North American Moodle partner of the year. And we started to see that the market was too fragmented. We wanted to come together, take all the different specialties that we had, come into one single group that could provide even better service and support and different services than we currently had, things like custom content, expanding out the portfolio of products, like we're here today to talk about Ally, and integrating that all into one solution. So that's what we've done. And we now have a team of about 150, going on about 175 here by the summer, of experts all over the world. And we're very much a global company at this stage. Speaking of being a global company, our leadership team is very global. We've got folks here from all over the world. We've got Australia represented here. We've got Colombia. We have a large presence in Latin America right now, and expanding that quite considerably. The OpenLMS story today, we are now by far the largest company providing Moodle services. We are hosting now, that number is already updated to closer to 1,600, going up to about 2,000 probably by the end of this year. We are growing rapidly. We are hiring quite a bit. And the story that we certainly had at eThink, which is a focus on service and support, is a tenet of what we're doing today. It's an open source platform. OpenLMS has now gone fully open source under GPL version 3. Everything we've done is going to be released out into the community by the end of the year. And that is a very exciting thing. So as far as where we go from here, I think you're going to see a lot from us in the community this year. One of the things that we focused on a lot, and that will lead me to turn it over to Jake here in a second, is the concept that the LMS has been relatively commoditized. In other words, there's feature parity. If you look at one LMS compared to another LMS, the features you're going to see are pretty similar. 10, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. What we've found is there's a focus on service, and there's a focus on how can you integrate the rest of the different things you need into the ecosystem. Accessibility, you can see, is one of the tenets of many of our clients' needs. Video, e-commerce, proctoring, these are all things that what we try to do at OpenLMS is to make it sort of a one-stop shop so the client can bundle those together, have them tightly integrated for a solution that's far more than just the LMS, something we call the e-learning ecosystem. With that, let me turn it over to Jake, and he'll walk you through the next part. I'll be back in a little bit. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. And so when I look at this picture, there's a rather large gap, and it always makes me think of a trip I took a couple of years ago, back in 2017, before my wife and I started a family and had our twin boys. But we did our last hurrah trip before we became parents. We went over to Europe, got to see Scotland, Ireland, and of course London. And but when we were going throughout London, we went on the underground, and there was a phrase that will just kind of get stuck in your head. And it's mind the gap. And so anytime I see this picture here, I always kind of get brought back to that. And and it's a good way to describe what we saw back in 2020 and 2020, and even now in 2021 with the pandemic. As we think about students, not just students with disabilities, but all types of learners, there was a lot of struggles that happened with the shift to remote instruction. Primarily for those students that had disabilities, there was a lot of course content that didn't always work with their assistive technologies, their screen readers, their physical hardware devices that they were using to interact with it. We also saw major problems with institutions just kind of to help support that, or even supporting students with that were low income. potentially might have limited access to high-speed internet, or maybe even very limited access to computers. Time after time again, I've heard several stories of students trying to do all of their coursework on their mobile phone. That's the fastest computer that they have at their house. That's where they do everything from, is from their mobile device. And so there's been a lot of struggles that we've seen, but when we normally think about this divide, especially from students and learning content, we want to try and close that gap as much as possible. But it's not just the traditional student that we're thinking about. We need to close that gap for all types of learners. We have a very diverse set of learners. We've got those with disabilities, sure, but we've also have mothers that are, or elderly people that are going back to school to improve their skill set. We've got fully mobile users doing everything from their mobile phone. Those that are non-traditional, that already have a job, they're working and they're trying to advance themselves. So as we think about learners and all that sort, that we need to really strive to create a more inclusive classroom and providing content that meets the needs, devices, and preferences of all learners. And by taking a look at some of the most recent research from a few years ago, there was a study that compared accessible content versus less accessible content, and how did that help improve things. And one of the things that was one of the key takeaways is that when students have access to high quality digital materials, it's a lot easier for them to retain that information and for them to complete tasks more quickly. So if we really strive to create higher quality digital materials, we can impact how well students could potentially engage or learn in the classroom. So our mission here is not just to focus on accessibility in terms of how it benefits learners with disabilities, but how we can improve the experience for all types of learners. And there's a lot of different key challenges that we're going to help solve today, or at least help share the solution to those challenges. Whether you're a student, instructor, admin, there's all things that we can do to help close that gap between the content itself and the learner. And we do that through a technology called Blackboard Ally. As Brian mentioned, Ally is the technology that integrates with Moodle. It's actually an LMS agnostic solution, but it's all about helping to make content more accessible, because we believe that accessible content is better content. And so Ally does that in 3 ways. We do it through providing alternative formats. So if an instructor has uploaded some content that is not screen reader friendly or has some accessibility issues in it, we'll automatically scan that content using machine learning algorithms based off of WCAG 2.1 AA checklist. And it will pick up, issues such as contrast issues, whether or not the document has been OCR'd, whether or not it can be used by a screen reader and things of that sort. There's over 80 different items that we check for, depending on the source material. And then we'll convert that into a more accessible version, whether it's a mobile-friendly HTML, OCR PDF, EPUB, audio content. There's a lot that we do to help close that gap from a student. This is all self-service, doesn't require any work from the instructor for these alternative formats to be created. It's just something that happens on the fly. The second thing we do is we really want to help just improve awareness of accessibility issues. There's a lot of faculty that are moving to online for the very first time this past year and a half because of the pandemic. And so they may have never had to really deal with accessibility issues and making sure that content's accessible to students that are learning at a distance. And so we will actually provide awareness indicators all throughout Moodle, all throughout the open LMS to make sure that instructors are aware of any accessibility issues that maybe Ally is not able to fix automatically, but then provide them with some guidance and direction on actually how to resolve and fix those issues. And so I'll be showing what that looks like today from the student instructor perspective. But we also have some reporting, administratively, when it comes to understanding and being aware of the accessibility issues on your learning management system. That has always been quite the challenge. A lot of institutions will try and strive to do course reviews, maybe every couple of years. Maybe a faculty member will work with an instructional designer if instructional designers are available to do those reviews. And sometimes they'll put in maybe a section in their review for accessibility. But more often than not, the only time we really know there's an accessibility issue is when there is a complaint. There's a student that has filed an explicit request, stating that, they're not able to move forward in that course. They need some help, some guidance. They need this content remediated. And then it's like, all hands on deck. We're trying to get that content remediated within 24 to 48 hours. That way that student's not at a standstill. And so by leveraging our reporting, we're able to empower institutions to take a more proactive approach. So if there is, accessibility issues, we'll let you know even before that course goes live. That way you can go ahead and make some changes and fix those issues before students get in there, and just to help improve the overall learning experience for all types of learners. So what I'll do now is I'm actually going to share my screen. That way you can see firsthand how Ally solves those various challenges for students, faculty, and administrators. And we're going to go over these three capabilities live. So you should be seeing my Open LMS screen now. So here I am in a Open LMS course. And what you'll see is I have a variety of content here. I have an image, we have some text, we also have some files that have been uploaded in here. And so from a student's perspective, I come into my course, maybe I'm using a screen reader or some sort of assistive technology, or I'm just using my cursor to click on some of the resources here. As I open up this particular PDF, if I was leveraging a screen reader, there's actually going to be a couple of challenges that I would have with this particular document. The first being is that it's using a two-column layout. So if you're not familiar with screen readers, the way that screen readers work, they read from top to bottom, and they don't always take into account the complete structure of the document. So as that screen reader is reading through all of this content on the first column, you'd think it would actually, when it gets to the end of it, it would come back to the very top of the page and start reading from the second column. But that's actually not the behavior or the normal behavior for screen readers. What will happen is when they finish reading, that screen reader reads the first column here, they'll actually just continue on to go down onto the second page. Now, put your shoes in the student that's trying to follow along, listen to the screen reader, read out this content to them. All of a sudden the language is, the context is going to change, the topic, the sentence, wasn't complete. It just kind of skipped a whole bunch of content. That's going to be a frustrating experience for a student. And so we're going to really want to make sure that we do something to help improve that. The second thing with this particular document, there's a feature within PDFs where you can tag the different sections of the document. So we have this section here called related work. We have another one here called representing the user. If we scroll up, we could have the abstract or introduction. Usually by tagging the PDF, you tag these different sections, and that would build out a table of contents for the student that's using the screen reader. That way, if they don't want to listen to the entire document from start to finish, they can easily jump to a section that they're interested in, and that's going to allow them to easily navigate the document. So in this case, again, the student's not able to do that because this particular PDF is not tagged. And then finally, the last kind of visual or issue within this particular document is that it's using tables. Tables are great for structuring content, but they're not that great from an accessibility standpoint because it doesn't really provide any context to the individual as far as, what is the header row and where does everything fit within the table. And so that can also pose a problem for screen readers. So when a student interacts with some content like this PDF, what would normally happen is if they're not having an ideal experience with their screen reader, they're now going to reach out to the instructor for help or guidance, see if they can get this content remediated. That way they can use it. And sometimes that takes 24 to 48 hours, sometimes longer, depending on how overwhelmed the staff at the institution is, especially during the pandemic. This has been quite a challenge for institutions. So Blackboard Ally can help assist institutions and students just by providing a self-service model. So as that student, interacts with that content, it doesn't provide the best user experience for them. They can just click on this little button here, use keyboard shortcuts, or navigate with the screen reader. The screen reader will let them know that there's alternative formats for them to be able to download. And then they have, one-click access to an HTML version, which is going to be the best experience for a screen reader. It's also going to be fully responsive for mobile devices. We have EPUB. So if you want to make use of kind of the annotation tools on your mobile phone or tablet device, that's great. the electronic braille for those tactile reading devices. You could even print this out if you have an embosser to read the physical braille print. Audio, which is very similar to a screen reader version, but essentially this is great for those, even though they don't have a screen reader. We might have some students that have a preference for just listening to their course materials instead of reading it. And then finally, we have a Beeline reader, which is great for students that have cognitive impairments such as dyslexia. It can help improve the readability of the content, and then a machine translated version. So all of these different formats are just readily available out of the box for any student. So let's take a look at this HTML version, and maybe if we have time, we'll jump through some of the others here, but we'll go ahead and download this. And within just a few seconds, you'll see this HTML version has been generated for me to make use of. And it's fixed a number of those issues that I just shared. This all automatic. This particular content doesn't require any extra involvement from the instructor. And so the student is able to move forward right away. And so as we take a look here, this particular PDF that was usually a 2-column layout, it's now a single column layout. So that screen reader is able to read from top to bottom without missing out on any content. The student is going to have a much better listening experience because of that. Not only that, our machine learning algorithms are able to pick up on different visual cues, such as spacing and headers and things of that sort. So we'll actually properly identify things with H1s and H2s. So the title of the document should always be reserved with a single H1. There should only be one on the page. And so we can see that we've done that here in the source code. We've properly identified this as an H1. The abstract and introductions are H2s. And then we have our paragraph text here. What all that semantic HTML is going to do is help improve the listening experience. So when that screen reader, starts reading out this page, you'll say beginning title, and then it'll say personalizing web search using long-term browsing history, or it'll say beginning paragraph, and it will read out the paragraph of this page. If we didn't have that context, that semantic HTML, the screen reader would just read this from start to bottom without any pause breaks, and that can just be really hard to listen to. As you're trying to process that information, especially depending if you have no visibility of this content, it can make it really hard to kind of break it up. And so there's a lot of pause, like starting and stopping of the listening by the student. And overall, without the semantic HTML, it can cause a lot of ear fatigue, just provides a poor listening experience. So a lot of things that we're just automatically fixing. And if we come down to that table, we'll also inspect this. We'll also provide semantic HTML, so we'll properly identify the header row within the table, and that can help improve things for those screen reader users. So in this particular case, we were able to resolve all of the accessibility issues. Now, Ally is not a silver bullet. It's not going to take care of everything. There are some things that do require human involvement. So let's say if there was an image in this particular document, then the faculty member, would need to put in a description for that. That way the student can benefit from that visual aid that's inside of the particular document. But overall, a student can quickly come into their course if there's a particular document that's posing accessibility challenge for them, or if it's a student that just has a particular preference when it comes to their learning. If they want to just listen to content or be able to mark up and take notes of it within an EPUB format, they can go ahead and select that format and download it. So I'll just do one more quick option here. We'll use the Beeline reader as an example of this. So very similar to the HTML format, but what we're doing in this case is we're using gradients to break up the text here, just to help improve the readability, because when everything has the same color, sometimes those words can start mixing together and it can be hard to read. And so using this gradient has shown to help improve the readability of content. But we also are aware that sometimes people might have, color blindness. And so they're not able to see certain colors, certain blues and greens and things of that sort. And so we do give the ability for you to change the hues, the different colors here for those different types of users. And then, of course, if anyone has light sensitivity, and you're in a low light situation, we can always kind of put a dark mode or a night mode turn on to help improve the readability. So all of this is going to help improve the accessibility of that content. And you'll see as I shrink this down, all of it automatically adjusts for the user. If I were to try to do this with that PDF document, you'll notice when I start scaling this down, the content gets cut off. I would have to do a lot of pinching and zooming on my mobile phone or tablet device. So even just from an accessibility perspective, with from a mobile phone perspective, there is a lot that we're doing to help just make that content appear better for our various types of users. So that's the student's side of things. Now, what about the instructor? What does Ally do to help improve things for instructors? Well, as an instructor, especially if it's my first time teaching fully online at a distance because of the pandemic, I might not know, how accessible my course content is or how that could pose potential challenges for my students. So everywhere throughout the course where Ally is scanning content, we'll actually provide these little gas gauge indicators. And these little gas gauge indicators are going to let me know how accessible that content is, whether it's low, medium, or high from an accessibility standpoint. So here I have an image. I'm seeing this little red indicator that's prompting me to click on it. And so I'll go ahead and see what's going on. And so in this particular image, this item, this image doesn't have a description. So Ally is providing me with a score. It's around 25%. And it's about 25%. And this is the first time I've ever seen this before. I don't know what that means. And so Ally is going to help educate me, let me know what the benefits are of an image description, how it can help improve the accessibility of the content, but then also help improve things for all types of learners. And it'll also give me some step-by-step directions on how I can fix this myself. So if I've never written a description before, it will give me some sample images with some sample text on what it might look like to write out a description for this particular image. So as I go through this tutorial, it's helping me think about some key considerations. One thing to point out is that the way that we describe images can vastly change based off of the context. So this particular image here with the flowers, the poppies, if we were to describe it in a history course, we might focus on how it relates to World War I and the symbolism related to that. Whereas if it was an art class, we might talk about the artist Van Gogh and the type of brushstrokes he used, the color palette, maybe some of the influence or inspiration behind this work, what led him to create this wonderful picture here. And so now that I've gone through that process and Ally has helped educate me, it's really just about putting what I've learned to application. Now, Ally will try and ensure that there are best practices being done. So if we try and put things in here, such as a file name, Ally is going to let me know that's not best practice, that doesn't really help users at all. And so I'll have the option to revise this and go ahead and put in a more accurate description of what is taking place here. So I'm just going to describe what I see here. And what's going to happen is once I make that submission, Ally is going to be notified that there is an alternative description here. We're going to inject that back into OpenLMS. That way, if a user was using a screen reader, they'd be able to pick up on that alt text and have that read aloud to them. And so now this content is more meaningful. It has a lot more usage for the instructor. And we've just helped improve some of the accessibility. And so you'll see that indicator will now go from a red to a green color. This is a great way just to help incentivize instructors to fix their content while also just adding that gamification aspect. It's kind of fun going through your course and trying to make everything green, as green as possible. It's a little bit of an incentive there. But as we come in here, you'll notice there's these little red indicators related to a variety of different type of content here. And so I can go ahead and just click on a particular document, and it's going to give me a nice preview of this option, but we'll also be able to see not only, the kind of the most prominent issue that is having a problem with this particular document, but there would normally also be a list of multiple issues. So let me see if this document here has a little bit more. No. Let's see here. Here's a better example. So this document, while it is untagged, there's multiple issues. And so we can go ahead and click on this. And this is going to let me know of everything that Ally has picked up on. And just like with what we saw with the image, Ally will provide me with step-by-step directions on how to improve this content. So if there's contrast issues, if the document is missing headers or has an image that needs a description, Blackboard Ally will give me step-by-step directions using Microsoft Office, such as Microsoft Word or even LibreOffice to work through these different challenges. And all I have to do is upload the revised version. Ally will rescan it against that WCAG 2.1 AA checklist for accessibility issues, and then will help also influence any of those alternative formats that we've automatically generated. So any work that an instructor does to help improve the original source material will also then help improve all of these alternative formats that we create. So it's in the best interest for faculty to fix anything that they can, but if they can't, Ally is going to do a good bulk of the work and making that content more accessible and providing all of these various options here for students. And this could be accessed by students and faculty, those alternative formats. The only thing that students do not see is those little gas gauge indicators. We don't want to cause any unnecessary anxiety for students. We don't want them to see all of the accessibility issues in their courses. So these gas gauge indicators are something that's only available for the instructor. Now, as an instructor, it's nice that I can come in here and see these little gas gauge indicators across the various items here. But what if I want to see a more holistic view of my course, everything at my course at once? We do have an accessibility report, and this allows me as an instructor to see all of the content that Ally has scanned, so Word documents, PDFs, open LMS labels or forums or page content, stuff that was created natively inside of the course, that WYSIWYG content. And so Ally is letting me know, all of these issues in one place, and it also categorizes things as severe, major, and mild. So something that might be severe is something that has not been OCR'd. And if you're not familiar with OCR'd, that stands for Optical Character Recognition. It also stands for Office of Civil Rights. But in this case, the OCR, it's for optical character recognition. That just means that this particular content is not, a screen reader can't use it. The student's not able to select the text and have it read aloud to them because it's just an image, it's a screenshot of something. And so Ally will automatically OCR documents using best in breed technology like Abby Fine Reader to help support that process. But this would be an area, a document that we probably want to replace as quickly as possible to help improve the visibility or the accessibility of this particular content. But Ally will give instructors a couple of workflows. They can choose to fix all of the easy content that's easy to fix, or maybe want to start with all of the low scoring content. And so we have kind of two paths that we can take as an instructor when it comes to fixing this content. So we'll just click start. We'll see a list of all of those issues, and then we can just click on the gas gauge indicator to start working through that content. So you don't have to go hunting for this information inside of your open LMS. You can, certainly do everything right here from the report itself. So those are the student and instructor workflows. But what about from an administrative standpoint? What if we want to take a more proactive approach from an accessibility standpoint? That way we can get ahead of these issues before students get into courses. And so we do provide access to a report that's from a open LMS administrator's point of view. We can also open up this to department chairs and other key stakeholders at the institution if necessary. But this allows us to see how well we're doing globally across the entire learning management system. So for this particular environment, we're able to see that accessibility has improved for the first couple of years. We did have a dip in 2017 and 18, and then things have been getting better overall for the past prior years. So that's a nice snapshot of just seeing that progression and see how well you're doing. If you start seeing a dip, that's where you would want to start investigating and trying figuring out what is going on. Have we do we have a whole bunch of new faculty or adjuncts that are joining? And so that course content, we need to do some training for those faculty to help improve some of the work they're doing within their courses. Do we need to do some course reviews? There's a lot of things that we can do based off of that data. So let's dive into some of the things that we can see here. In this particular case, we can see we've got over 273 courses. Usually we see tens of thousands of courses on environments. This is just a demo environment. But across those courses, we've scanned about 14,000 plus items, and we can see the overall accessibility of not just file-based content, but also rich text editor content that has been created natively within the LMS. And then we can see all of the different types of issues based off of that WCAG 2.1 AA checklist, such as whether something severe, major, or minor. And as I shared earlier, something severe might be a document that has not been OCR'd. It could also be an image that could induce a seizure. If someone has epilepsy, someone has uploaded a GIF or an animated, kind of strobing light effect that can pose some challenges. And so we want to make sure we tackle or get ahead of those issues before students might interact with it. But some things could be something as simple as just an image without a description, or a document that has some contrast issues. And so again, we can tackle these issues just by clicking on the particular issue. We'll see a listing of all of the courses with that particular challenge, and then we can dive into that course and start fixing each of those individuals just by accessing these little gas gauge indicators. So it really helps to take a more centralized approach to accessibility and supporting inclusive design, just by allowing you to come and fix these issues, in one place, instead of necessarily having to go into every single course to work on this. So this allows you to fix accessibility issues at scale. Other things that we do and provide, and I won't talk too much about this, but you do have the option to dive into individual courses. So if you just want to see what an instructor sees within their course, this is great for IDs and those that are doing course reviews. But we also have the ability for you to even track usage. So you can see how often these alternative formats are being downloaded, which courses have the highest downloads, and other usage reports. And this just really helps you, if you choose to license Ally in the future, this really helps you to see kind of the return on investment. How often are faculty fixing issues within their courses, from an accessibility standpoint, because of that guidance that we're bringing in. But then also, most importantly, are students benefiting by being able to download these alternative formats? And you might see that you actually have a very high population of students with a visual impairment because they're downloading the electronic Braille version of content. Because as we know, about 66% of students, don't self-disclose their impairments. And so, when they're taking a fully online course, they just want to be treated like everybody else. And so they might not necessarily disclose that information. So you might actually have a higher population of students than you're aware of when it comes to accessibility. Access to content. So I going to pause here because I am going to now transition over to our guest speaker, Dr. Ristori, to share some of her lessons learned and some of the things that she's been successful there at Carolina Coastal. But let me go ahead and hand it off to her.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I appreciate that wonderful overview of the Ally tool and the integration specifically within the Moodle or LMS environment. I do have a number of different items to share with you today, and the first slide that we're going to be sharing with you is a bit of an overview about the campus that I'm here to represent for today, Coastal Carolina University. We have about 11,000 students. We are a traditional liberal arts teaching focused institution, and some of the interesting metrics about our particular campus. First of all, it's beautiful, as you can see in the photo that's being shared with you now. We have about 47%, almost half of our population actually is from out of state. There are some interesting socioeconomic factors about our students that kind of distinguish us. Many of our students are dependent on financial aid in order to even pursue, much less continue their education. There are some interesting other variables that may resemble some of the institutions you are joining us in from today, or while you're watching this asynchronously at a later time. We have about 500 full-time faculty, about 2,000 employees. We offer quite a few baccalaureate degrees, masters, and we've recently also proudly added our first couple of PhDs at our institution. Interestingly enough, we are a Moodle institution. We're currently running version 3.6. We will be upgrading hopefully in the near future, but we are an institution specifically that has had a high presence of online or digital learning classes for quite some time, even predating COVID. With that in mind, one of the things that has come in as a question that probably is something that has helped us throughout the entire 3 years that we've had Ally implemented is trying to figure out how to not only garner funding to support the implementation of a tool like Ally, but how to make sure that you understand and can convey to the university partners where Ally is situated in your university and which type of learners and teachers and faculty that it actually has the ability to support. So we're going to take over a look over the next few slides at some data that we've been able to collect. And I believe some of this will actually be helpful for you, depending on where you are in your institution, whether you serve as a faculty member, an instructional technologist, a director over a teaching and learning center, or digital learning like I do. And we'll be able to share with you some of the wins and accomplishments that we've been able to have here at CCU. On the next slide, you'll be able to see the structure that we use here at Coastal Carolina University in terms of situating the concept of digital accessibility and universal design. So in that specific area, the next slide has kind of a piecemeal approach to understanding that digital accessibility does not rest specifically in the digital learning environment, which is my department, but it actually is supported by multiple partners throughout campus. So digital accessibility is a very large component on our campus. And while my unit, the Coastal Office of Online Learning, or COOL, does offer a tremendous amount of training, we do support not only Ally, but Ally integrated into our learning management system, Moodle, but there are many other partners across campus that play a significant role in the digital accessibility initiative. Ally is one of the many tools, but as I like to share with Brian, with Jake, and with others on this call, Ally has actually been what I like to call the gold star. It has been the number one initiative to actually help us to move forward. Something that's important to understand about the way that Moodle is implemented on my campus, much like it's probably implemented on many of your campuses, is Moodle is not simply utilized just for active learning courses that are taught for credit. We actually utilize Moodle for many different purposes. We use Moodle for doing our training courses for our faculty. We use Moodle for also doing mandatory training for all of our employees. So the first slide that we had started with, where you saw that vast number of employees, both in the faculty and in the staff role, is of integral importance to this digital accessibility initiative, because Ally is not just being utilized for student learners for academic purposes, but for all learners all the time, everywhere. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you a couple of the ways that we actually chose to roll out Ally on our campus. The initiative started a little over 3 years ago when we began speccing out not only the cost of implementation, but who would benefit most from Ally. And as you can see on this slide here, Ally was actually rolled out on our campus in a series of 3 phases. On my campus, my team in particular is responsible for supporting the learning management system, Moodle, and we support all faculty, staff, students, and anyone who may need our help. And so from that perspective, the development of training guides, supplemental materials, and other items was really integral to the success and the promotion of Ally itself. That second bullet that you're seeing listed there specifically is about this wonderful tool that one of my staff members helps us to roll out. It's what's actually called the Ally Digest. And that particular Ally Digest is a weekly tool that my team sends out to individuals on my campus. It's freely available. And so that link, which will be shared with you momentarily, is available for you to go back and take a look at, share with your colleagues, and think about how you might actually implement and suggest Ally on your own campus. The Ally tool itself, as Jake has shared in detail with us, does have both a faculty and a staff component. And I'm going to show you some of the data that Coastal Carolina University has collected to show how Ally has actually transformed our campus and our digital accessibility across the board. Some of the things to keep in mind that you can have as a takeaway after today's presentation is the most important thing to think about with implementation and support of Ally is how you're going to get the word out about the importance of Ally and how this isn't just for learners who may or may not have a disability. And it's certainly not just for faculty who happen to be teaching online. Ally is situated in a universal design perspective in such a way that you have the ability to utilize this in any capacity that you might want to use. If you're a Moodle client, you can have Ally. And so being able to implement and integrate with the LTI for Ally has been transformative for us because we do utilize it in every single instance of Ally, both for our academic classes, but also for our training and development classes. You can see a list of some of the workshops that we teach: digital accessibility. We have a specific Ally workshop that we teach as well. We have some really great initiatives that are part of our bigger, broader digital accessibility initiative. The VAE is one that I'm most proud of, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But VAE in our instance stands for Virtual Accessibility Expert, and it is a program that we rolled out in 2020 in order to pair together one of my staff members directly with faculty to help them leverage Ally for digital accessibility improvements at the course level. We also offer monetary grants to help support faculty for learning about digital accessibility. And I'll talk a little bit about how that has worked and how that has helped in terms of transforming the campus's digital accessibility profile. All right, let's take a look at the next slide where I have some data to begin sharing with everybody. This was actually previewed when Jake gave you an overview of what Ally looks like from the administrative side of things. So in my position, I sit in an area in which not only do I need to be an advocate for digital accessibility, but I need to be able to convey to individuals in key positions across our campus what we look like currently and what role the tools such as Ally have been able to actually play across the board in our campus. And so just to give you kind of a highlight, you can see the radial graph on the far left-hand side with the different colors. And I know that I've noticed in the chat a couple of questions about what is Ally capable of checking in particular in Moodle. One of the biggest benefits and enhancements that actually occurred in the 2019-2020 academic year was Ally did a deep level integration. And it went from checking uploaded files to also checking all content in the WYSIWYG, or what's now called the virtual text box editor. Because of the fact that Moodle and Ally now can comprehensively check all content, what you're seeing on that radial graph is a representation of different content that's been added directly to the WYSIWYG. That red section is to discussions. So it's checking content that has been uploaded. And like many of you, my faculty like to upload content such as media into their discussion board. So it's doing a deep check of all accessibility in activities such as discussions. The purple is PDFs, which are one of our #1 flags. It's also checking assignments, which is what you're seeing in blue, and then the dark gray is images. And then the rest of them, as they go down, are smaller percentages that are raising red flags of total digital accessibility concerns that we need to look at. On the right-hand side of this screen is an overall radiograph that I wanted to actually take just a moment to highlight because one of the things that has transpired because of COVID is my team specifically has seen a tremendous move for faculty who have previously not used the learning management system Moodle to upload a tremendous amount of material that may not have been in the best format for digital accessibility. However, even with that in mind, one of the interesting things that you're going to note here at the bottom of the screen is that we have had overall a 10% increase in digital accessibility. That is with significant reason to our faculty because Ally, as you've seen in a demonstration with Jake, will immediately transform some of this content into more accessible content. So even though we've had a significant influx of inaccessible content, Ally itself has, through machine learning, been able to transform much of our content into items that are much more accessible. All right, let's take a look at some data that is actually from the instructor side of things. And one of the things that you'll see on this particular slide is how easy it is for faculty to actually run their full instructor accessibility report. They run this on a course-by-course basis. If I wanted to run this on my gerontology class, I would simply click the accessibility report that you see at the top left, and it will give me a comprehensive report. How often have faculty been doing that is probably something that if you were in my shoes, you would want to know. Do people actually use this? So there's this really interesting metric that Ally and Blackboard came up with called a conversion metric. And if you look at the top right-hand side, you'll see something called a conversion rate. What that means is if faculty click on it, do they then follow through and actually make the changes? So over the last year, we've actually found that we've now tipped the scale of over 50% of the time, if faculty click on it, they do indeed make the changes. That is absolutely with accolades to Ally, because Ally has continued to make improvements to their instructor guided feedback to tell faculty, click here, add in text, and you're done. So the streamlining and the implementation of enhancements and making it easier for our faculty to immediately make changes is actually what has directly impacted our overall conversion rate and has helped us to continue to increase that. The number in the green box right beneath that, total number of fixes, that's the number of documents that have been improved independently by our faculty over the last year. So that's over 4,000 documents that have been improved. We are very pleased with this total number of improvements overall, and part of that has to do with some of those promotional activities, the Ally Digest, the training workshops, and other types of initiatives that our team has launched campus-wide. So this is just a snapshot of what this looks like when faculty use it. The very next slide is going to show you the student usage, which is also one of my favorite ones to take a look at. The student usage itself, as you can see, in comparison to the faculty, that conversion rate's a little bit higher. Jake had shown you the little drop-down arrow that our students are going to see. And the most common concern, complaint, question I get from students is, what is that? They don't know what it is. And so one of the things that my team has done, we build templates that are available for our faculty to utilize in their Moodle course shells. And we've now actually done a call out to help students to understand, if you see a drop down, click it. It will give you the opportunity to have alternative file formats. So students' conversion rates are much higher, in fact, than faculty are. Their conversion rates, the number of times they click on that link and then go ahead and move forward and use an alternative format, is almost 70%. The number of alternative formats that students have actually utilized over the last year is actually above 30,000. Now, that does have something to do with COVID. Again, we have a number of our students who had to go directly remote. They left their computers, they left their textbooks, they did not have access to a desktop or a laptop computer, and many of them simply did not have access to the software that they actually needed in order to access their files that were uploaded into the course. With that in mind, some of our most common alternative formats that students tend to utilize is the OCR PDF, which was demonstrated earlier by one of my colleagues as well, because the files themselves may not be screen readable, they may not be MP3 so that they can be listened to, they may be in a format such as PowerPoint that students may not actually have that software installed on their device. And so because of that, Ally gives students the ability to open things in an HTML window without the need to actually have the software program package installed, or they can also open it in a PDF format. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next section to give you just a tiny snippet of the way that this has transpired. Out of all of those 30,000 files, this is the way that this is kind of spread out. Again, the tagged PDF is the highest usage for our students. HTML, as I explained earlier, is coming in at number 2. And the reason for that is the lack of software package installed on their device. Jake made a point of saying earlier, many of our students are actually utilizing their mobile phones. My team here in the Coastal Office of Online Learning also has been analyzing data to look at what devices are our students utilizing to hit the network. Even when they're physically here on campus, the number one device that they're using is an iPhone. And so if we know that the number one device that students and faculty are utilizing to access their content is a mobile device, then we need to make sure that they have the ability to access whatever that content is in any format at any time across the board. So you're seeing the predominant ones, tagged PDF, also HTML, and then you can see some of the other items that were showcased earlier: audio, translated version for alternative or foreign languages, OCR PDF, EPUB, and Braille and Beeline as well are all kind of available there. At the administrative level, you can run these reports and you can share these as you like with anybody in your team in order to showcase the value and the usage overall. All right, let's take a look at the next slide, kind of as a call out, because I want you to see some of the promotions and some of the initiatives that we've actually been able to do, specifically coming from Coastal Carolina University, some of the ways that we've been able to promote and increase the usage of Ally across the board. So one of the things that I'm very proud of, specifically with my own staff here in the Coastal Office of Online Learning, is we engaged in what's called Fix Your Content Day, which is sponsored by Blackboard Ally. And that was actually last year, around May of last year. It's also coming up this year. So here's a plug for those of you who might want to participate as early Ally users. And my campus across the entire world, out of everybody who participated, ended up as a Silver Club member, and we scored 18th across the whole world. Fix Your Content Day was just a flagship day for us to make a point of saying, you know what, we want to celebrate digital accessibility for every learner, every user, everywhere, all the time, across all devices. And so we spent a 24-hour period with dedicated staff hopping in and making alternative format changes, adding in alternative image tags and all kinds of other fixes to courses in order to improve the overall digital accessibility footprint on our campus, in order to help our faculty, to save them a lot of time, and also because we're very competitive, because we wanted to place in the top 20, and we did. So I did want to go ahead and say this is one of the types of things that my campus has found to be very interesting, is we've been able to participate in these types of initiatives with our colleagues who actually have also already adopted Ally and are utilizing it across the globe. So it has been not only transformative in terms of digital accessibility, but it's been fun as well, because there is such a large community of other people who care about digital accessibility and universal design for all learners and all faculty across the board. All right, so where are we going next? What are things to think about if you're in my shoes, where I was 3.5 years ago, and you're thinking, gosh, digital accessibility is so important, but how do I convey this? How do I help people to understand how important this is, and that this isn't just for the 10% of classes that are online, and it's not just for those faculty who may teach online, and it's certainly not just for learners who disclose a disability. In fact, it's less for those learners than it is for your entire global population, because of the fact that everything behind the Blackboard Ally interface is built for a universal design perspective. It's built to be simple for faculty. It's actually built to be simple for administrators to run reports. And it's certainly built to help our students to learn from any device in any instance going forward. The data that you're seeing there at the chart at the very top is something that I figured would be helpful for all of you who are coming from institutions who've just survived the 2020 year like we have. That spike that you're seeing right there in the middle, that was the beginning of our fall semester. That is what happened when all of our faculty uploaded a lot of content all at one time, because we had to do a remote switch all of a sudden and everybody went fully online. So what you're seeing is that increase. What's important there is a slide that I had shown you just a few minutes ago. So even with that significant increase that you're seeing here, we still had a 10% increase overall in digital accessibility across the board in the learning management system. And I cannot explain that the significant role any better, I hope, that I've been able to convey today that Ally has played in that. We've done so much work internally with our staff. Our faculty have done so much work with internal changes. And by so much work, it's 5 minutes of their time to add alternative tags. And that alone has transformed the accessibility of each of their courses. So coming up with us, we will continue to do data analysis, and we'll be tracking some trends. Another one of the major improvements that has come in the Ally interface over the last year is, if you're a Moodle customer like we are, then the way that your database is structured, you may actually set up your courses under colleges or under departments. And if you do that, then one of the things that you can run is you can run college level reports, department level reports. You can find out who's doing great, who needs more assistance. And so one of the things that we're going to continue to do as we continue to clean up our database is we'll be running these college level reports. We're going to be designating what we like to call access champions. And so those are our faculty who have gone from, let's say, 22% course level score with accessibility overall with Ally, all the way up to 95%. So we're going to be recognizing them with digital badges so that they have the ability to be recognized at the departmental level and to add that into their professional portfolio for all of the hard work that they've done. In addition to that, we'll also be doing some direct outreach to those that are at the bottom of the score, because institutionally, as an administrator, I can reach out to anybody who's scoring very, very low in their courses, 10%, 20%, et cetera. So we're going to continue to do outreach to those that need a little bit more assistance. We ran a report just last week, in fact, to find out anybody who has very, very low scoring content. And that will allow us to do direct outreach in order to assign them with a virtual accessibility expert, an individual who's a staff member situated within my unit, who can be paired with faculty who need a little bit more assistance to get their courses up to WCAG standards. As we continue to go forward, we're also going to be shooting for, hopefully, being in the top 20 again this year with the 2021 Fixture Content Day, which I believe we have a promotion for coming up momentarily in this presentation as well. I did include a LinkedIn there for me if you'd like to contact me and you'd like to hear any more details specifically about how Coastal Carolina University has implemented Ally and how we've situated specifically the Ally tool as one of the key factors for us in the digital accessibility and universal design initiative. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to share a little bit about how this has been helpful for our campus.
I will just jump back in to say that was incredible. Both of you just really, I think, set the bar about 5 times higher than any webinar I've been on recently. So thank you for that. That was really incredible. Now we've tried to answer questions. Jasmine and Jonathan have been trying to answer questions through the chat, and hopefully they've gotten through quite a few of those. But let's stay on for a couple more minutes. If anybody has any further questions we haven't answered that you'd like to see addressed, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll hang on for a couple more minutes. If those of you who feel like you need to go here top of the hour, have a hard stop, we just want to say thank you for spending time with us today. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Feel free to follow up with any of us. If you have any questions or would like to see a further demonstration of the product and a deeper dive for your institution, we were sending some follow-up emails as well with access to the recording, as well as information for anyone who would like to do that deeper dive. With that, I am looking to see questions coming in, and I will turn those over to either Jake or Dr. Restora to answer. And thank you for coming more. College of Art Design, one of my favorite places to visit there in Philadelphia. Appreciate you guys attending today.
All right, so there was a question about the administrative side. So I can go ahead and just share my screen quickly for that. Let's see. So as an admin, let's see. Here we go. Looks like I don't have the Ally report turned on in my Moodle environment. So as you saw in my demo, I did highlight it within another learning management system, but the reports are very similar. Administratively, you'll be able to have access to the institutional report, as we call it. It's just an LTI-based integration inside of Moodle. And so it will just render inside of the Moodle environment. And this is where you'll be able to see all of the metrics across all of the different accessibility issues that we picked up. And we'll also provide access to a configuration utility. That way, if you want to turn Ally on and off for specific courses, you have the flexibility to phase or roll out this tool. I think others will agree, though, that we typically recommend that we turn it on for all courses. There are certain maybe instances with maybe foreign language courses where we might disable the foreign language translation for that. But overall, this is where you can configure the courses, the help settings, and other features. You can toggle them on and off. So all very pretty straightforward LTI-based integrations via the Moodle platform. Hopefully that answers your question.
Fantastic, Jake. I think with that, we got a great back. Fantastic. Glad to see that answered your question. If there's no other questions, I think we'll pause here for a second and see if there is. And if not, we're going to go ahead and conclude today's session. And just a huge thank you guys for all taking the time with us today. We look forward to working with you more in the future. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.